Howdy, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bean on the Scene. I am Alma Bean, and we're going to get into some pretty cool stuff today. I think that there's been a lot of interesting news over the last week since the last time that we spoke, but, you tell me. Let me know in the comments, live chat, if there's something that maybe you had seen over the last week, because, again, there's a lot of stuff to get to that you would like for me to elaborate on, by all means, go for it. Let me know, again, in the chat or in the comments, whether you are on YouTube at Bean on the Scene 801, if you are on Twitch at Mr. Beanie Baby 19, or if you are here on X at AlmaBean23. Again, just let me know if you would like for me to elaborate on some things or what have you. But let's jump right into it. We are going to talk about the only Division I football game that happened in Utah this past week, which was for BYU as they took on West Virginia. That game took place on a Friday night rather than a Saturday night, and it was on ESPN. So the whole nation was able to see it front and center. And BYU, they looked pretty good once they got started. First quarter, they scored 2 straight touchdowns, both of them to Parker Kingston. First touchdown being a 1-yard touchdown run, and then the second one being a 54-yard touchdown pass from Bear Bachmeier to Parker Kingston. Now, unfortunately, in that first quarter, though, BYU's defense would lose Jack Kelly, who would appear to injure his shoulder while tackling freshman quarterback Khalil Wilkins from West Virginia, and he would not return in that game. Now, again, Jack Kelly, he has been absolutely phenomenal for BYU this year, being their leading tackler. And he's just been the heart and soul of that defense. So losing him early in the game, that was definitely something that Cougar fans did not want to see. But in the second quarter, both teams did look like they were wanting to score, as Cade Hensley from West Virginia made a 45-yard field goal to at least say that they put some points up on the board. But after a few defensive stops on both ends, Bear Bachmeier threw a bomb of a pass to Chase Roberts for 85 yards that would set up a 4-yard touchdown run for LJ Martin to make it 21-3. Now, the reason why I put such a heavy emphasis on that throw is because not only was it an amazing throw, amazing catch, amazing distance, but that was the longest pass for BYU since 1996. So think about that. They have not thrown a pass that far since I have been born. So that is crazy enough to even think about. But after that touchdown from LJ Martin, BYU, they would end up fumbling on their next possession, and UVU would end up capitalizing on that opportunity as Dior Hubbard would then score a 3-yard touchdown run to make things 21-10. But Bachmeier would lead BYU's offense down the field one more time as he would end up running it in to making it a 28-10 score at the half. But BYU, again, would suffer yet another loss to their defensive side. And they lost their number one tackling option in Jack Kelly in the first quarter. They then would lose their second best tackling option in the second quarter as Isaiah Glasker would not return after suffering a right leg injury. Thankfully for BYU's sake, though, it wouldn't have affected them too much. Even though they were outscored 14-10 in the second half, BYU would end up getting the win 38-24. Now, with this win, BYU ended up moving up 5 spots in the AP poll, making them 18th in the country. And even though I did mention those injuries, according to the Week 7 depth chart that the team posted, both Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker are both expected to start according to that depth chart. So Cougars fans, take a deep breath. Everything is okay. It seems like everything is going to be back to normal going into this next week. Now, as far as their next game, they will be playing on Saturday, October 11th at Arizona at 6 p.m. Mountain Time on ESPN2. Now, if you want to tune into the Cougars postgame show on the KSL Sports Zone with Christian Esparza and Alex Napolis, That will take place immediately following the conclusion of that BYU-Arizona game. And who knows, you might have some special guests on there. You're going to hear some post-game press conference audio from Kalani Sitake. So you got a lot of good information there, and especially going to Arizona, I think you're going to get some good stuff there. And one funny quote that Kalani Sitake said on the Jim Rome show, and I believe this was either today or yesterday. Jim Rome was asking about having Bear and Tiger Bachmeier on the team, and it's like, oh well, how do you feel about them on your team? Like, they're just like badasses. And Sitake's response was, well, if you're going to have names like that, you got to be a badass. So even though those are probably terms that you're not going to hear too often from any sort of BYU representative, I thought it was pretty cool that, he's backing up his guys, even if it does mean dropping some verbiage like that. Now for Utah's football team, they did not play this week. They were on a bye week, but their first game back is going to be against the 21st ranked Arizona State Sun Devils. And the Sun Devils will be traveling up to Rice-Eccles Stadium on October 11th, and that game will be at 8:15 Mountain Time on ESPN. Even though ASU is ranked, they are considered the underdog going into this game just because Rice-Eccles is a completely different beast when it comes to playing a night game. But again, similar to the Cougars postgame show, if you want to listen to the Utes postgame show, that will be taking place immediately following the conclusion of this game. And once again, it will be with Christian Esparza, Alex Napolis. There could potentially be a guest there. You'll also receive some post-game audio, most likely from Kyle Whittingham. But before we move on from Utah, just a little side note, and it kind of shows a little bit of my fandom. But last night, Devin Lloyd, former Utah U and current linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars, set a franchise record last night with the longest pick six in Jacksonville Jaguars history as he returned a 99-yard interception on Monday Night Football in their 31-28 win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Not only that, but it was Trevor Lawrence's birthday. So a nice little birthday gift to get that Monday night win, with it being their first time winning on Monday night since 2011, and it was their first Monday night win at home since 2006. So congratulations to Devin Lloyd and the Jaguars. Great representation for locals in the NFL, especially there with the entire nation watching. So congratulations to you guys. Now for Utah State, they are also coming off a bye week, but their game, believe it or not, is the last game of the night on Saturday, October 11th, because they will be playing at Hawaii with kickoff starting at 9:59 Mountain Time, with the pregame starting at 9 p.m. on the KSL Sports Zone, specifically 12:80 a.m. with Scotty G. If you are staying up to watch that game, I pray for you. That is going to be a very late one, especially for Scotty G and for our producers in the studio that will be working that game. Make sure you bring your caffeine. But overall, I think it's going to be a good game. I think Utah State could probably handle this one. And even with Utah facing Arizona State, I think that will probably be a one-score game. And then BYU with Arizona, I think it's going to be a one-score game, probably a touchdown. Utah will probably be closer to a field goal. Utah State, I think that they're probably going to run away with that one. Even though with the travel, I think Hawaii will probably get the jump on Utah State early. But overall, I think that all three Utah schools, they should be able to pull away with the wins this week. Now, for a different sport with Real Salt Lake, they are really teasing the fact that the MLS playoffs is within their reach, and especially with their 1-0 win over the Colorado Rapids this past Saturday. With that win, RSL jumped Colorado to the 9th and final spot for the playoffs. Now, that does not mean that RSL has locked in their spot, because they still have 2 more matches left this season. And in my opinion, and honestly, I think any analyst's opinion, They are two must-win games for RSL if they want to see the postseason. Now, one of those games is going to be on Saturday, October 11th, at the Seattle Sounders FC, starting at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Pre-game starting at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time on 102.7 FM and the KSL Sports app. If you've been paying attention to all of the times that I've been mentioning, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in the KSL Sports Zone on Saturday night. So there's going to be a lot of different games on a lot of different channels and a lot of different outlets. So again, make sure that you are checking their socials to make sure that you are listening to the right games on the right channel so you can show your teams their support. Now, the Utah Royals, they have been very impressive down the stretch. They actually had a 2-2 draw this last match against the Chicago Stars FC, which now brings their unbeaten streak to 8 straight matches, as they have gone 4-4-0, so 4 wins, 4 draws, 0 losses. But unlike RSL, the Royals will not have a chance at the postseason, but they will have the opportunity to spoil teams' seeding and potential playoff hopes with their final 3 games, because all 3 of their games are going to be against current playoff positioning teams, with one of them needing to win to keep their playoff hopes alive, the other 2 locking in their spot. So if anything, Utah could potentially change up the seeding for those 2 teams. But the team that is on the ropes is their matchup this Saturday, again, October 11th, against the San Diego Wave FC. That game will be at America First Field. That game will start at 8 p.m. Mountain Time, with the pregame starting at 7:30 p.m. on YouTube or the KSL Sports app. If you want to listen to JP Chunga before David James takes over the reins with the play-by-play broadcast. Now, with the Utah Jazz, their training camp just started just immediately following their media days last week. But yesterday, they surprised a bunch of students at East High School. And yes, for the locals, you know East High. For those of you who are not locals, it's that East High. But they showed up with a scrimmage. They did a little dunk contest. They also did a little bit of rookie hazing. So, you know, it was all fun and games. But Utah's first taste of the preseason is going to take place on Wednesday, tomorrow, October 8th, at Houston at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Or you can listen to David Locke, Ron Boone. You can listen to them on the KSL Sports Zone. You could always tune in to K-Jazz. You could also tune in on Jazz Plus, SEG Plus, whichever subscription you have. All of that will be on there. But if you do not want to watch it on those platforms, and maybe you want to go to a social setting, you can actually meet the new PA voice of the Utah Jazz, Mark Denman, who was just announced last week. He is going to be doing a meet and greet for the entire first half of this preseason game at the Mid-City Pub and Grill in Midvale, Utah. So I personally have not met him yet. I have loved the personality that he has shown so far. I loved what he showed in his audition video on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, I've really enjoyed listening to everything that he had to say, especially since it's kind of a teaser for what Jazz fans are going to be listening to for the foreseeable future. So I think that he has the perfect voice for PA, a nice, smooth, deep speaking voice. So overall, I think it would be really great for Jazz fans to turn out to this event, show him that Utah does show up, as Ryan Smith has said time in and time out. So prove it to Mark Denman. So again, that will be at the Mid-City Pub and Grill in Midvale, Utah on October 8th, and he will be there from 5:45 p.m., so just before the game will start, and then he will be there available for this meet and greet until halftime. Now, for the Utah Mammoth, a lot of big things have happened, and if you haven't noticed, one of them is on my chest. So the new Utah Mammoth sweaters, they are completely available, and it almost seemed like Fanatics was trying to challenge Utah fans to have them sell out once again. After last year, that first batch, they were gone what felt like in minutes. This year, that was not the case. You could probably even head down to the Delta Center for the team store now and find plenty of sweaters on those racks, because from what sources told me, they had roughly about 36,000 sweaters ready for fans to purchase in store. I don't know what it looked like online, but I do know that I believe it was Dylan Gunther was one player that was on the website for a little bit. And then a few friends of mine tried to buy his sweater a little later in the day. And by later, I mean 30 minutes after lunch, and it was not available, and you had to purchase it as a customization. Now, one thing that a lot of people were, I don't want to say confused, but maybe there was some miscommunication at some point. There were just about every single player on the roster available in the team store, or at least the players who were guaranteed spots. And that sounds really bad to say guaranteed, but there were guys that you were anticipating to be on the Utah Mammoth roster to start the season. All of those guys, all of their sweaters were available in the team store at release. Now, not every sweater was fully stitched, and the players that were available for those stitched sweaters were, first off, the captain, Keller. You also had Lawson Krause. You had Logan Cooley, Mikhail Sergachev, Dylan Gunther, and Nick Schmaltz. Those were the only 6 players that were fully stitched. And what that means is that every single sweater will have the logos stitched across the chest. So for the away salt white sweaters, it'll be the Utah lettering. All of that is fully stitched in. And then for the black sweaters, which, give me 2 seconds, I'll bring that one over here. I probably should have had that with me before I started recording, but oh well. Good thing it was just right over there, though. For the home sweaters, it is this giant, beautiful Mammoth, which, again, absolutely beautiful. These are fully stitched on every single sweater, whether it is one of the 6 players that I mentioned or someone else, because that is just how the sweaters will come. Now, for the other features, such as shoulder patches, numbers, all of that, those are only stitched on the 6 players that I mentioned. So with the away sweaters, it is the Mammoth logo here. There's additional fabric underneath, so then it does not go all the way through. With the home sweaters, it is the alternate Utah state outline with the hockey stick. Again, fabric underneath. And then the numbers on the back, the nameplate, all of that, those are stitched on these sweaters. But for the other sweaters, so like say you got like a Brandon Tanev, JJ Peterka, those sweaters, they have the nameplates stitched. So as you can see, like with the outline here, let's see if we can get light there. Yeah, so a little bit of the outline there. So the lettering is stitched onto this specific plate, but then it is heat pressed onto the sweater itself. Same with the numbers. Even though it has the design where you can see with each layering, it is stitch looking. All of those numbers are heat pressed if it is not one of the 6 players that I had mentioned. So you can always take those into a tailor. I know within the area that I'm in, I've heard prices as low as $25, but with that specific place that was down in Orem, I've also heard prices as much as $100 to get all of that stitching done. And I know one of the more sensitive spots, it is on the sleeve, just because there is a lot of motion that goes on in that area. So if you are buying one of the press sweaters, a couple suggestions. Find a good tailor that you trust. Find somebody, especially being local, find somebody in your ward that might be able to do a really good stitching job. Or if you don't want to go the stitching route and potentially damage the sweater, again, the heat press, you can always try and do a little makeshift adjustment at home. What I had to do with the sweaters last season, as some of you might remember, the heat press did not work too well last year, but it was also their first attempt at doing so. You could always take some parchment paper, run an iron over it, and I personally would take some heavy books of some kind and leave that press there with the heat, just so then it can solidify it in the spacing. So you do have options, but if your sweater is already peeling, no worries. I know that it's a bit of a drag to pay that much money and have to get some sort of fix, but the customization store inside of the Delta Center, as long as you provide proof of purchase from the team store itself, so you cannot buy the sweater off the Fanatics website, even though it's the same vendor. If it is purchased in store, you can provide proof of purchase and you show it to that customization center. They will have the sweater repressed for you for free. And it won't just be the one spot. They will completely repress the entire thing free of charge. And you might be wondering, why wouldn't they take it if it's bought from the Fanatics website? They're the same people. They get it all from the same place. What's the difference? Well, the pressing happens in store. Stitching comes from Fanatics itself. So they can have proof that they messed up on their end and they will make things right. I personally have been buying sweaters, jerseys from those guys at the customization center for the last 4 years. They have been nothing but phenomenal with me. Even with Utah Jazz jerseys, if a number's been peeling up, they just told me to take it off my back, hand it over to them, and they pressed it no problem, free of charge. So again, you have multiple options. I know it's a bit of a drag, but there are options. Now, with the sweaters being out of the way, we have mentioned them. They are beautiful. We all know. A big statistic came out earlier today stating that the captain, this guy, Clayton Keller, had the 4th highest selling sweater over the offseason, which I think is really cool coming from a fan base that is still fairly new, because everybody knew that new sweaters were coming. So the fact that people were still buying Clayton Keller sweaters, knowing that there was going to be an adjustment for the upcoming season, it shows that either there's a lot of collectors out there that still want to have an original, which I still have my black Clayton Keller. Absolutely love it. I plan on wearing it throughout the season. But the fact that you didn't see guys like Connor McDavid or Macklin Celebrini, and some people will say, like, well, Macklin Celebrini plays for a team that's not really winning too much with the San Jose Sharks, or Connor McDavid, he's in a Canadian market. Sweaters don't sell too well up there. Well, with my experience, you would think that the top-notch players would be the highest selling ones. So even like a Sidney Crosby wasn't even there in the top 5. And Ovechkin, he was number 2. So to think that there wasn't that much of a gap between Keller and Ovechkin with sales, but having Keller over Crosby, I think it's a big thing for the state of Utah that the NHL, their fan base is recognizing that there is something special here in Utah. People want to be a part of history. People want to have that merchandise in hand. And they don't care if it's going to be a jersey that is going to be considered vintage, obsolete. It's a collector's item, and it's a part of history, and people want it. Now, I'm really curious to see what the sales are going to be like now that there's an official sweater. I do know a handful of people that are not within the local market that were asking me, when do these go on sale? When can I purchase them? How much are they going to be? And I just gave them all the website information, and they sent me receipts saying, I'm so excited for this to get delivered, or I really hope that this is what I'm expecting. I'm excited to cheer for you guys this year. So there's a lot of hype behind Utah going into this upcoming season. And there's even some analysts that are out here saying Utah could potentially be a wild card team. And Bill Armstrong has even said it in a few of his pressers. It's playoffs or bust, essentially, for this year. this team is in year 4 if you count their time in Arizona. This is year 4 for the organization, that front office group, of a rebuild. And now is the time where they are expecting to see major movement, major changes to start going for a Stanley Cup. And funny enough, a fan yesterday got to ask Andre Tierney if he's bringing a cup to Utah, because he was in his office in this video specifically. And Bear, he was just like, oh, yeah, we're bringing a cup here. Don't know when, but we will. So even though that's a very vague answer, it's still something. It's something to go off of. And it's a lot of speculation here and there. And there's a lot of really great teams in the NHL. But the fact that there are analysts and representatives that are at least putting the Mammoth in the conversation, I think that's pretty cool. But as we move into the actual Mammoth roster itself, yesterday they finalized their roster as they go into the NHL season. They did have to make a few business decisions, and I will read it in order, with the forwards first, defensemen next, and then goaltenders. So the forwards that they have here on their list, which I am reading the opening night roster from the Utah Mammoths X page, you have in numerical order Nick Schmaltz, Clayton Keller, Dylan Guenther, Brandon Tanev, Jack McBain, Barrett Hayton, Andrew Agozzino. I don't know why I said that right, but it didn't sound right. That's why I repeated it. Michael Carcone, Kyler Yamamoto, Lawson Krause, JJ Peterka, Kevin Stenlin, and Logan Cooley. Now, again, those are your forwards that are starting. There's probably a couple of names that you didn't hear. Those names being Alexander Kerfoot and Liam O'Brien. Now, when it comes to those two specific players, Alex Kerfoot, he is beginning the season on IR with a lower body injury. And then Liam O'Brien, he is on the injured non-roster list. So even during practice today, Liam O'Brien, he was in a no-contact sweater. I believe that Alex wasn't even on the ice as far as I can remember. I could be wrong. Don't hold me to it. But also Kevin Stenlin wasn't on the ice. I'm still waiting to see if there's an update on that one. But, you know, you're starting to see some of these guys getting some really awesome opportunities. And I think it's great seeing guys like Kyler Yamamoto or Andrew Agozzino, seeing those guys getting opportunities, because for those of you who don't know, Agozzino, he is essentially an AHL lifer, and he's finally getting his call up to the NHL. It looks like he'll probably be there for a handful of games. Kyler Yamamoto, he had his brief stint with Utah last season and kind of became a fan favorite of sorts. And, you know, even though Kyler is on the shorter side of things, along with Michael Carcone, these are guys that are fighting for roster spots. His speed is going to be great. He has good vision on the ice. Now it's a matter of whether or not they can execute and they can be an impact on the defensive end. Now, as far as the actual lines, today during the practice, these were the lines that they were working with. And let me pull that up real quick. So the lines that they were going along with, it was Keller, McBain, Schmaltz, Guenther, Cooley, Peterka, which that line is going to be absolutely nasty. Krause, Hayton, Yamamoto, and then Tanev, Agozzino, and Carcone, with O'Brien, again, being in his non-contact sweater. So they're switching things up. It's going to be interesting how that first line is going to look. If that's the first line that they are going to have for Game 1 on October 9th. I don't think that that's what they're going to use, but if they do, I think that's really interesting that McBain is essentially up there as a bodyguard. But overall, I'm excited for what they have to prove with those forward lines. Now, for the defensive side, again, in numerical order, you have Olimata, John Marino, Dmitry Simashev, Ian Cole, Sean Dursey, Nick DeSimone, Nate Schmidt, and Mikhail Sergachev. Now, the big name on there, Simashev. I personally thought that he was maybe going to get a couple of games in the AHL and then get called up to the NHL. Well, apparently he's not going to have to wait. He has been really impressive during the preseason, even for the games that I got to see in person. He just had me in awe the entire time, and I think it's very well deserved. And I'm really excited to see how he faces true NHL talent as these guys are actually fighting in games to get a winning result. But I do expect there to be a little bit of, I guess, rookie remorse. I think that there will be some mistakes early just because it is a change of pace from the KHL. But so far, from what he's shown in the preseason, I like what I saw. Apparently, the front office liked what they saw, and they're giving him a shot. Now, as far as those lines for the defensive side, they go Sergachev Marino, Schmidt Dursey, Cole Simashev, and Mata and Simone. Now, I do not hate that one bit. I think that having that height and strength from Simashev on that third defensive line there, I think that that is just fine. And then it almost kind of alludes that maybe Mata and DeSimone, depending on what sort of rotation Utah decides to use, if they're going to use 8 defensemen or if they're going to use 7 and kind of have one person in the rotation. They're showing that Simashev is definitely getting minutes, which I think is a great thing for him. I don't think that you keep him at the NHL level if he's not getting minutes. So I think that it's a great rotation there. Then as far as goaltenders, again, this is in numerical order. You have Vitek Vanacek and Karel Vejmelka. Now, there's no surprises there, especially with Utah trading away Connor Ingram to Edmonton. I think that this is going to be a great 1-2 tandem, especially after the performance that Vanacek put on for Utah's true home game on October 2nd against the LA Kings. He was absolutely phenomenal, 32 saves on 33 shots. Some of those saves that he had, again, I was in awe. And some people will probably come after me saying it's just preseason, like stop glazing it. I still like what I saw, and there was some NHL talent out on that ice. So if that's the type of performance you're getting from your backup goaltender, I mean, Utah got to see it with Karel Vejmelka last year. If your backup goaltender can perform like that, it's going to bring up some pretty tough conversations, and you know you can actually feel comfortable when your backup goaltender goes in if there's going to be some phenomenal performances like Vanacek put on for that game. Now, what I'm really interested in is what Utah is going to be able to do for that first game against Colorado. I mean, you're going to have a bunch of different guys that you're really going to have to account for. I mean, the biggest one being Nathan MacKinnon. But Colorado, they're a team that you don't mess with. You're going into their own territory for night 1 of the NHL season. Granted, Colorado, they're already getting themselves a warm-up with that being their second game of the season. But it will be their home opener, so there still might be some nerves of some kind. But overall, I think the Mammoth are getting a pretty good test to start off their season. But overall, I'm just excited for there to be hockey of some kind. And before we even get into those games, one last thing, and we'll get into it. I also noticed that the Tucson Roadrunners, not only did they bring the Kachina design back for their 10th anniversary, but they look great. I think they look awesome. Some people might knock on it because the Mammoth logo, similar to what is going on here, the Mammoth logo is on one of the shoulders along with the 10th anniversary patch on the other. There is a lot of colors. It's a lot of clashing colors, in my opinion. but the gold for the lettering, I think that's what's getting me the most. So those sweaters, they are on sale. They're only on sale in blanks at the moment. I'm currently trying to see with some of the people that I know down in that area if they are selling any named 10th anniversary sweaters. If so, I personally am going to get one. I will let you guys see it the moment that I have it. I will wear it on this podcast or out and about, whatever. Some guys that I'm really hoping to maybe get those sweaters for would be Daniil Boot, Maverick Lamoureux, or maybe if you want to get somebody that's maybe a little more, I guess you can consider obscure, but I would really like to get, man, I'm really blanking on his name right now. That's embarrassing. Let's see if I can do a little bit of a. Okay, don't hate me. Montana Onyebuchi. I think it would be really cool to also have his sweater as well, just because what he was able to do in the preseason and, being on his 2-year, two-way contract, I think that he's a guy that you can invest in. I like some of the intangibles that he has shown. But I think Onyebuchi, Lamoureux, Boot, I think those are three guys that I personally would like to get. Or shoot, you could probably even get Villalta or Stauber. I think that those might be some good guys to get those sweaters for. But just the gold trim that's on the nameplate for the lettering, I think it looks absolutely phenomenal, and I would love to get my hands on those. But back to the NHL. Tonight is night 1 of the NHL season. You have 3 games, all of them on ESPN. First one is going to be in about an hour and a half from the time of this recording. It's going to be the Chicago Blackhawks versus the back-to-back Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Now, even though Chicago, they have the young talent behind them, I think Florida still is just going to be way too much for Chicago. And I'm going to put it here that Florida is going to win that one 5-2. The next game after that one is going to be with the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Rangers. That game is going to start at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And again, on ESPN. I think this one's going to be more of a narrow win, but I think it's going to be a great showing for the 19-year captain, Sidney Crosby, as Pittsburgh gets the win 3-2. And then the final game of the night will be Colorado versus the Los Angeles Kings. That game, puck drop, will be at 8:30 p.m. again on ESPN. I think just because it is the home environment of Los Angeles, I think that they will get the win 3-1, which I think will make Utah's game versus Colorado, which again is going to be on Thursday, October 9th at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. I think Colorado is going to want to not only get their first win of the season, but also show out for the home crowd. Now, if you want to tune into that pregame show for Utah at Colorado, that will start at 6 p.m. Mountain Time with Adrian Denny on the KSL Sports Zone. Now, there's been a lot of good stuff throughout the last week in the state of Utah, and I am very glad, happy, and grateful that we are about to get into full swing of Utah sports. You're starting to feel the weather getting a little cooler outside. Granted, right now, as I'm recording, it's now 61 degrees, so cooler. But night times, you're looking at close to 45 degrees. You're starting to get a little bit of that wind chill. You're starting to get precipitation from the rain, so that means snow is right around the corner, as you can see it on the mountaintops. So Utah sports season is about to be in full swing, and I am so excited for it, and I hope you are. But with that being said, that is another Bean on the Scene. I am Alma Bean, and y'all enjoy the rest of your day.